everyone, Dr. Sharon Alston here. We finished up earlier this week the probiotic milk test. It was pretty interesting to see over the course of 3 days what changes occurred with the little glass dish of milk and 100 billion probiotic that we used. My question to you guys at this point in time is, do you consider this test, or would you consider this milk test foolproof? And my answer is technically no. So there are a lot of things that we need to consider when doing this test. Do I think it's foolproof? No. Can it be a great starting point to determine if you're giving your child or yourself a decent probiotic? Absolutely. So some of the things that we need to be concerned about or think about when it comes to doing this test in our home is visual appeal. So what the heck do you mean by visual appeal? I'll tell you. So if you recall from the videos at 24 hours, over 48 hours, and then again at 72 hours, there was quite some difference between the consistency, the formation of certain things that were happening within the little bowl. Does the presence of curdle formation or changing or thickening of the agent indicate that there's only beneficial bacterial growth? The answer is no, and I'll tell you why. So for example, for the sake of this experiment, I used only one genre of bacteria and one specific strain. And the genre was lactobacillus, and it was, again, 100 billion probiotic of lactobacillus. We've discussed lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and both of these genera of bacteria actually produce a byproduct, which is called lactic acid. And that happens essentially when, as the fermentation process of the milk sugars. So the milk sugars are digested, and they form lactic acid. And lactic acid is actually a byproduct of a lot of different bacteria in our gut system. And this whole fermentation process, creating lactic acid, is what can produce curdle formation within the dish or whatever bowl or container that you're using to do this experiment. But are lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, and other beneficial bacteria, are these the only bacteria that produce curdle formation? And the answer is no. So there is another genre of bacteria called Streptococcus that actually can also digest milk sugars, in this case lactose, and produce lactic acid, which would result in the formation of curdles. So certain strains of Streptococcus are not ideal for our system. So they're not actually good beneficial bacteria. So I want to emphasize and stress to you guys that just because, if you're doing this experiment, just because you get curdle formation does not necessarily mean that there is only good beneficial bacteria in your sample or specimen. And this is really important, and I'll touch base on it in a few minutes when we talk about what exactly you should be looking for when you're getting your probiotic or considering a probiotic, because it's really important. So visual appeal, strains, and also form. So the form of probiotic. So a powder or a capsule that you open up and kind of mix into something, which is what I did. These are going to be a little bit easier to mix and hopefully get some desired effect. And this is in comparison to something like a tablet or a pellet or an enteric-coated compound or capsule. And when you're using or thinking about those things, they usually have a little bit of stabilizers that are in there. So again, it's difficult to kind of ascertain, how much of the stabilizers are you getting versus the probiotic itself. So again, when you're using a powder or a capsule, you might get better growth or better happenings, I should say, not necessarily growth, but better changes in the experiment or throughout the experiment than using some of the other forms. So finally, what should you be asking yourself when you're considering a probiotic? And this, guys, it's really important. I want you guys to look at this video, look at it 2 or 3, 4 times if you need to, because this is really important when it comes to any supplements, but especially when it comes to probiotics. So you need to consider, is the product backed by quality science? So there are some people out there that says, science means nothing. Anecdotal evidence is everything. Then you have the opposite. Anecdotal is everything. Science means nothing. Then you have a happy medium, right? Then you have those people, oh, science is biased. It's not good. There has to be a medium. So for as much bad data and research out there, there's also a lot of good data and a lot of good research out there. So it's our job to kind of decipher and pick through what is doing, what people are testing, what they're researching in an unbiased fashion. And what I will say is, because this is a product, probiotics and supplements in general, anything that we put into or onto our body, I am really diligent about, okay, how is this potentially affecting the human body? We don't know everything. I myself, as a naturopathic doctor, I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything. And if you guys are dealing with a doctor or a healthcare practitioner that claims to know everything, you need to get out and find another one. And this is in all seriousness, because we don't know everything as healthcare providers. We have an understanding, we have an idea based on what the research and data is showing us. But again, every person, every body, everyone's constitution is a little bit different. So we need to understand that, and we need to take that into consideration. But when it goes to science, I want to make sure, what I'm consuming was actually studied in humans. So I'm looking for clinical trial research. It's okay to have rodent research. It's okay to have cell culture or in vitro research out there. But at the end of the day, if I'm putting anything into my mouth or I'm putting anything on my skin, anything that could potentially affect my biochemistry, my physiology, I want to make sure that there is some type of human data that's out there or clinical data that's out there. Secondly, was this product processed in a facility that is in compliance with GMP or good manufacturing practices, and is it third-party tested? So for the sake of this experiment, everything was done in my kitchen. Is this the most germ-free, contaminant-free space? No, by far no. If I were considering, doing this experiment and encapsulating the product that I got after the experiment and trying to sell it, I'd be a fool. And I'd probably would be shut down really quickly, because you know what? I didn't have any third-party testing done. And what do I mean, again, by third-party testing? Third-party testing is guaranteeing that whatever is listed on that label is what is exactly in the product. So unfortunately, because supplements are not regulated as tightly as some of the other things out there on the market, we need to make sure that what is actually on the label is being represented in the sample or the product that you're taking. Secondly, third-party testing allows and ensures that the product that you're consuming is free of contaminants, free of heavy metals, free of potentially harmful things that could disrupt our normal physiology. And thirdly, it allows for things like probiotics, for example, to be grown in ideal conditions. So we talked about bacteria needing to be with the right temperature, with the right pH, in the presence of the right amount of oxygen. These are all things that are really important for helping to establish a product that is ideal for consumption, to do what it's intended to do. And finally, the third thing is the genre of bacteria. So we've talked a lot about lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, but there are also other genre of bacteria that are used as probiotics, depending on your GI function and whatever other conditions you might be experiencing. Bacillus is actually one of my favorites. This is actually a true probiotic. And what I mean by true probiotic is that it can live in any environment. These are what are called spore-forming or soil organisms. They can survive inside the body. They can survive outside the body. And they will actually start to grow and replicate when the environment is favorable for them to do so. Streptococcus, another one. So you might be saying, well, you just said a few minutes ago that streptococcus is potentially bad. And that's true. But you also have good strains of streptococcus that can actually help your oral health, your GI health in general. And finally, Saccharomyces. Look for Saccharomyces. Saccharomyces is a little bit different than the other ones that we've discussed in the fact that it's actually not a bacteria, it's a yeast probiotic. And again, it has been studied and shown to have potential benefit for some GI issues and GI complaints. So it's really, really important, guys, that we know what to look for when it comes to probiotics. And it's not just probiotics, it's all supplements in general. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this information valuable. I hope that you can take something away from it and apply it to your own life and to help improve not only your child, but your constipation, if that's the case, and or your GI health. I will be moving forward at the remainder of this month, talking about more natural treatments that we can consider for constipation and improving GI health. Guys, don't forget to like, follow, and share at Be Balanced and